Hello friends, I am Dr. Sonal Chandak. Today in this presentation, I am going to discuss with you the classification of costs. This classification can be on the basis of its nature, it can be on the basis of the functions, it can be on the basis of the behavior, or by controllability or normality, or by time, or by decision making. The list can be the way we want. These costs are classified just because we have to take many different decisions. Now, in this presentation, we are going to classify the costs. Let us take the first type, that is the cost classification on the basis of its nature or traceability. On the basis of nature or traceability, we can have the difference as direct cost and indirect cost. Now, direct costs are directly attributable or traceable to the cost object. They are directly incurred on the production and therefore they are known as the direct cost. Here, I will recall one thing. If you are knowing something about the cost statement, all the direct costs belong to the prime cost in the cost statement. Friends, indirect costs are also known as the overheads. Indirect costs are those which are not being directly attributable or traceable. They are allocated or apportioned to the cost object. They are not directly incurred on the production activity, but they are highly supportive to the production activity. Thus, the classification by nature is the direct cost and the indirect cost. The second classification type is classification of cost by function. Now, there are different functions which are performed in the organization. They are production, they are office and administrative, they are selling and distribution, they are research and development. These are the functions on which we are incurring the different costs, and as per their incurrence, we can identify them as the respective cost. Say for example, if we are incurring the cost on the production activity, whether direct or indirect, we can call them as the factory cost or production cost or works cost, and sometimes it can be in some other name it is identified. If you are incurring the cost either on the office or the administration or the management, we can call them as office and administrative overheads. Now, in case we are incurring the cost on the selling and distribution, say for example, the expenditure made on sales staff, or the expenditure made on the advertisement or the sales promotion. These are the costs which are incurred on the selling and distribution activity. So these are known as the selling and distribution costs. Thus, if we are incurring the cost as per the activity of function we are performing, then that particular cost is known as, the classification is known as the classification of cost based on its function. Now let us discuss the classification of cost on the basis of its behavior or variability. There are three types: the fixed cost, the variable cost, and the semi-variable or semi-fixed cost. The fixed costs are fixed irrespective of the changes in the production. In spite of the fact the production volume increases or decreases or no production takes place, still the fixed cost is required to be incurred. For example, rent of a building or taxes of municipal corporation to the building. Irrespective of the production activity, whether we perform the production or not, still we have to pay these costs, and therefore they are known as the fixed cost. The second type is variable cost. Variable costs are variable with the production. They vary with the changes in the production. If the production increases, variable cost also increases. If the production decreases, variable cost also decreases. Say for example, raw material required. If you are performing production, we need raw material. If you are not performing, then we will not need it. If we are increasing production, naturally we need the raw material in the increased proportion. In the very same proportion, the production increases. Thus, the variable cost increase along with the increasing production in the same proportion and decrease with the decrease in the production in the same proportion. Let us speak something about the semi-variable or semi-fixed cost. These costs up to a certain level of production are fixed. After that level passes, the cost become variable. There can be a step costing as well. I can quote an example here of the water charges or electricity charges. Up to a certain level, the meter charges are applicable and they are fixed. But beyond that, if you are using the electricity or water, naturally that becomes the variable cost. Now, let us discuss the classification of cost on the basis of its controllability. As per this type, we have again two types, that is controllable costs and uncontrollable costs. Controllable costs are those which can be controlled or influenced by conscious management action. Say for example, the fluctuations in the material prices are seasonal. In the period when the season is going on, the material prices are low. If the management is observant enough, it can observe it and control the prices and control the cost thereby. The uncontrollable cost cannot be controlled or influenced by the conscious management action. They are totally uncontrollable because we don't have any control over it. Say for example, the moods or the behavior of the labor. The moods of the labor or the behavior of the labor is not even in their own hand. Sometimes they feel good, they are very happy and they perform their best. However, sometimes they are not feeling good, their behavior is not good, and therefore it directly has the impact on the production activity. This is absolutely an uncontrollable factor. And the performance affects directly on the production and thereby the cost incurred. Now let us differentiate cost on the basis of its normality. We have again two types, normal cost and abnormal cost. Normal costs arise during the routine day-to-day business operations, while abnormal costs arise because of any abnormal activity or event not the part of the routine business operations such as accidents, natural disasters, etc. When we speak of the normal cost, we can take the example as to if we are putting in 100% of the raw material as an input. Say for example, we are assuming that we can have the 10% of the normal wastage and we will be getting output of 90%. This is absolutely normal because we assume that there is going to be a 10% wastage, which is absolutely normal. But in case there is a major power failure for a long time and due to which there is a loss of production, Naturally, this production loss is treated to be absolutely abnormal. Now we are going to distinguish the cost on the basis of time. We have again two types. One is historical cost and the other is predetermined cost. The historical costs are those costs which are incurred in the past. These costs help us in the decision making and planning. They also help in deciding the benchmarks and parameters for the future. The second type is predetermined costs. They're absolutely based on the assumptions, or they may be based on the historical costs plus the activities which are continued in the present. The predetermined costs are computed in advance on the basis of the factors affecting the cost elements. Now let us differentiate the different costs on the basis of the decision making part, which is important from the managerial costing or cost accounting. These costs are used in the managerial decision making. They are quite important. The first is marginal cost. The marginal cost is the change in the total cost caused by either increasing or decreasing one unit of output. The second is differential cost. This cost is the difference in the total cost resulting from selecting one alternative course of action over the other. The third is opportunity cost. When we have more than one alternatives and we are making choice of one, by foregoing the other alternatives, the gain which we could make out of the other alternatives is treated as the opportunity cost. Let us make it more simple. The value of the benefit sacrificed in favor of the alternative course of action which has been foregone, which has been sacrificed. That is called as opportunity cost. The next is relevant cost. The relevant cost is a cost which is relevant while various decisions of management are taken. When and where the management wants the cost which is required has to be taken into consideration. That cost is known as the relevant cost at that time. The next is replacement cost. This replacement cost is a cost at which the existing item of material or the fixed cost can be replaced at the present or some future date. Next is shutdown cost. Friends, shutdown cost is a cost which is incurred if the operations are either shut down or which would not occur if the operations are not shut down or the operations are continued. Capacity cost. The capacity costs are the costs which are incurred by the company by providing for the production, administration, then selling, distribution capacities in order to perform the various functions. Many times or normally these costs are fixed costs. If one important cost again is there which has to be understood properly, that is sunk cost. Sunk cost is the cost which is incurred but cannot be recovered. Remember, the sunk cost is a cost which is incurred, which is spent, which has been expended, but it cannot be recovered. Friends, knowing the cost classification helps us in addressing the cost at the right place. Say, for example, we are in a position to segregate them on the basis of its variability, that is fixed cost, variable cost, and semi-variable cost. We can have the capacity costing and we can have the marginal costing as well. So far as the marginal costing is concerned, we are in a position to calculate the contribution and we are in a position to take the major decisions. That is, it helps us in decision making as well. So, this cost classification is definitely an important one, and every one of us should know how to do that. I'm sure I am in a position to make you understand what is it and how to do it, the classification of cost. Thank you so much.